Every club. Every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the Daily Ipswich. It is Monday. Hope you all had a very good weekend. We are part of the Global Sports Podcast Network and myself today, Richard Popple, is joined by Mr. Rob Binns. Hello, Rob.
Hello, mate. Good to be back. So we had a James solo episode on Friday. Everyone must have thought they got rid of us, but me and you are back again.
Yeah, no, he did very well. And we will have the fourth corner to our square back very soon, Mr. Tom Crack. He's been away. He says on a bit of business, but I've seen on Instagram that he's basically just up a mountain somewhere having a good time. So, we'll welcome Tom back at some point. I think he's trying to connect his internet too. And after my internet troubles earlier in the year, we're really going through it with the old connectivity here at the Daily Ipswich. But the Blues themselves had a good weekend. We scored 4 goals, Rob.
Yeah, I know. So it was near enough a perfect game for us, really. It's just the only blemish was sort of conceding because we got through. It was a good performance, and importantly, you look at where the source of the goals came from. It was a lot of players who needed them, really. So Clark particularly needed a performance like that. So hopefully it sets us up very well for a bit of confidence for the squad players that we can take into the league season. And obviously, fingers crossed, we can get a decent draw tonight.
Yep. Do you know what? We haven't scored more than 3 goals in a game since March last year. Do you remember what the game was?
No, I don't at all.
It was a 6-0 thrashing of Sheffield Wednesday.
Oh, yeah. Forgot about that game. Yeah.
Yeah. 16th of March. So it's been a long time since we've had a bit of a goal. I think we scored 3 at Brentford, didn't we, in that defeat? But that's the only time we've got to 3 this season as well. In the cup, obviously against Bristol Rovers, we've scored 3 as well. But anyway, nice to score a few goals. And as you say, a couple of players who really, really needed one, particularly Jack Clark, got a bit of a confidence boost. So, nice result for us, really. I think also there's a sense of, Coventry had a decent run, really, hadn't they? I think they'd won 4 out of the last 5. Frank Lampard had got them playing well again. I actually always thought they were a pretty decent team. Under Mark Robbins, they were always a good team. And obviously they were in the semi-final last year. Very unlucky not to beat Man United that day. I was willing them on. But obviously a very happy hunting ground for us because we went there at the end of last year and that famous 2-1 victory, which all but sealed our promotion to the Premier League. And then we go back there and pick up another really, really good result. The lineups, any sort of shocks for you? Any headlines? Obviously, we had a new goalkeeper.
Yeah, so it was nice to be able to give him a chance before throwing him straight in the Premier League, weren't it? That was a benefit that he wasn't cup tied from West Brom this season. That we got to see him, and as far as I can tell, he assured himself pretty well. So I'm gonna have to confess, I didn't watch the game. I was out travelling on the Saturday afternoon in non-league, but. So I've caught up with what I can. So he seems fairly accomplished. So certainly looks like he's playing with more confidence than Muric is at the moment. So I say hopefully he can put a bit of run of form together. And I've certainly not put off from game 1, which is the minimum you can ask for.
Do you reckon he'll be in goal next week?
Yeah, I'd like to think so. Yeah, I can't see any reason why he wouldn't be. But then, so if he had picked up a knock in the game, we wouldn't find out until he wasn't in the matchday squad at the weekend, would we? So, as far as I know, he's still fully fit, and like we say, Muric has got a lot of issues going on at the moment in terms of confidence and morale with him. That's affecting him on the pitch. So you have to expect Palmer to be in there, unless McKenna throws a curveball in there and Slicker goes in. But I'd expect to see him in. I'd expect to see him in the net until minimum when Walton comes back, and he might even see it out for the rest of the season now.
Yeah, I would agree. I think so. I think Muric is going to struggle to get back into the team, and I think ultimately that's potentially the right thing. I mean, I don't think he even made the bench, did he? Slicker was on the bench for it. A couple of other absentees on the bench as well. Dara O'Shea was given the whole game off. Greaves, Hutchinson. I don't know whether there were knocks there or whether they were just giving a rest to a few players.
I'd imagine just rest. Certainly O'Shea's case. We spoke about it the other day, didn't we? And all these defensive changes, the one sort of consistency is O'Shea plays 90 minutes pretty much every game, whereas he's had a chance for a couple of cup games to get a bit of a break, and so it just stops him getting overrun, don't it? And then it's nice to see. So the back four we had out, so it's nice to Wolfie and Burgess are both putting good shifts in majority of games I've played this year. So it's nice to give them a chance, and so they're playing well enough that you can back them to do that. You can't just, because sometimes say you throw wholesale changes together, it doesn't work. So a lot of the time, I mean, look at the Liverpool result yesterday. Was it 9 or 10 changes they made? They still have backed them enough to get a result against Plymouth. But so certainly you can't expect the same level of football when you make a lot of changes. But apparently we can. So that's what McKenna does by managing his squad.
Yeah, we'll get to the Liverpool result and a few of the others a little bit later on in the second part of the show. But yeah, you're right. I mean, you look at the team in general. Actually, it's got a, dare I say, championship feel to it. Palmer going in goal, Townsend's at left back, Burgess and Wolfenden, who, as you say, have not particularly been first choice this season, but who were very much first choice last year. Jack Taylor was back in the team. Schmodix came back into the team. Hurst, Jack Clark, as we mentioned as well. So lots of players who very much tore it up in the Championship last year and had strong seasons. Even Philogene on loan at Hull looked comfortable in that environment, which, if worse comes to the worst at the end of the season and we do get relegated, then that at least stands us in good stead that we look a decent Championship team at the very least. So yeah, it's nice. And obviously it was a flying start to the game. I don't think I've ever seen an earlier penalty than that.
Yeah, it was about 20 seconds on the clock, wasn't it? Something like that went underway.
Yeah.
So something I've said that we don't a lot in previews. I always say I want to see us come out the blocks and sort of play with a bit of intensity, and so do that. We quite often don't do it, especially at home. But say away from home we're better at it, and so we clearly done the job here because we put in enough intensity and played from the front enough to force a penalty in as early as that. So sets the standard for the game, don't it? So get yourself that early lead that. Like I say, something we haven't done enough in Premier League games. Obviously, granted, the opposition's different, but like we say, Coventry was never expected to be a walkover, was it? They've been in very good form since Lampard come over, especially at home. So we were expecting a tough game. So we come out the blocks and got ourselves away, and a great pen from Hurst as well. Got to say, because keeper went the right way, and still never looked like saving it, did he? So he picked his spot, had enough power and placement to find it. Very good penalty, and I say that. The bonus, why it's almost frustrating in a weird way, as good as it was to get ahead and set the standard for the game. But you sort of see the potential of why can't we start Premier League games like that? Because I've asked for it a lot of times and say this is what can happen when you play like that. But a good start, well rewarded.
Yeah, well, I suppose the defences were up against her a little bit better in the Premier League. But you're right, it was nice to see us out of the blocks early. I couldn't believe it when the goal flashed up on, I think, BBC Sport or whatever. It was like, bloody hell, here we go. But it didn't last very long because 7 minutes later, Coventry were level. We conceded from a corner. It wasn't great. I mean, you could argue that the execution from them was pretty good, but we looked a bit statuesque at the back. And it seemed a fairly sort of routine kind of goal to concede. But we did respond really well. And Jack Clark got himself a nice little opener. I thought he actually played really, really well. That's the Jack Clark that you kind of like saw at Sunderland last year, really. And sadly, we haven't really seen it at Ipswich yet at all. But it was a massive confidence booster for him, certainly the second goal as well. But what do you make of the first goal? He took it really nicely.
Yeah, he did. Like I say, the cup's been a good opportunity for him to shine, really, hasn't it? We said going into the Bristol Rovers game that we hoped that could be sort of get him his first goal off them that he was so desperate for, give him a bit of confidence that he can take forward. He did it in that game. We haven't seen it reflect into the Premier League yet, but hopefully he kicked on another gear again in this game. So he showed the quality he's got there. Like I say, but I thought both his goals he done well. Really, so that's very well taken. This one, especially, and it's nice to see. Again, you just got to hope he can carry it over this time because he couldn't at Bristol Rovers. He then looked fairly sheepish again. The cameos he's had off the bench in the game since that, so I'm hoping that he kicks on because like I say, it's just a reminder that not to give up on him there because he's had a tough season, and we know how good he has been at Sunderland, and so he's given us a bit of enough of a flash in this game to sort of keep the hope, and if he can turn it on, then he'll be a big asset into the rest of the season. But it's great for him as well, because like we said, we spoke about Muric, obviously, with confidence, but Clark was probably of the outfield players in the squad, is probably the one you could say who's playing on the least confidence this season. So him to have a game like this, say a couple of goals, he set Philogene up as well. That it's really, he had an opportunity, like I say, when you make as many changes as you do in these games, there's an opportunity to these squad players to show themselves, and he absolutely took it and say some finish as well for this first goal.
Yeah, and then he did it again about 10 minutes later. I think they lost possession, didn't they? Back there, Coventry playing around with it a little bit too much, and Hurst picked it up. I actually thought he should have taken it first time. It didn't, because we're talking about a confidence thing. I think a really confident player there would have literally just taken it first time because the shot was on to do that, and it almost looked like the defender who came back kind of very much mistimed the challenge, didn't really kind of go the right way, and made it fairly easy for Clark in the end, but. That could have been stopped, and I would have expected him to go for it first time. But still, he put it away. And again, really nice for him to get another confidence booster. And we go in at 3-1 at half time, which wasn't too bad at all. Do you think it slightly flattered us, maybe, that scoreline?
Maybe a bit, but I think we deserve to be in front. Definitely. The only argument would be had Coventry deserved to be a couple goals down, which, and on the balance of play, they played well without really threatening as much as they could have done. I thought that obviously Frank Lampard's come out and said that it was, despite the scoreline, it was more of an even game than when they lost to Leeds in the Championship the other day. That in terms of how the game played out, he certainly felt the scoreline flattered us a bit. But so I think in the first half it was a good little battle, but we deservedly in front, I would say, definitely. And I say, and the goal we conceded, really, like I say, I understand where Lampard's come from, because on the balance of the play, from what I've seen, it was relatively even, but they didn't offer too much in front of goal, Coventry. Like I say, an uncharacteristically poor defender from a corner from us is something we've been one of the big strengths this year, amongst many weaknesses defensively, is we've been good at set pieces, especially corners. But that slipped for the goal today. But no, I think we were good value for it at half time.
Nice. All right. Well, look, let's take a quick break and then we'll come back and finish off how the game went in the second half.
Here at the Global Sports Podcast Network, we spent a lot of time selecting our delivery platform, and Zencastr came out the clear winner. With 4K video recording from your phone and AI editing that automatically removes all those ums and ahs, it's super easy to start a podcast that sounds great and is delivered efficiently. If you're ready to tell your story, check out the link in the show description to learn more about Zencastr.
We are back here on the Daily Ipswich. So we went in 3-1 at half time. I mean, the game, was pretty much won, I suppose, at that point. It was important for us not to concede for the first kind of 15, 20 minutes of the second half, which we managed to do. And then obviously Philogene got on the score sheet, I think, just after the hour mark, which basically killed the game off for the last half an hour. He took the goal quite well, actually, I thought, because Jack Clark kind of broke. Wasn't the best ball from him, to be perfectly honest. He was trying to bend it round a little bit more, but it went quite close to the keeper. But Philogene actually finished nicely at the near post.
Yeah, he didn't do any favours with that ball, really, did he, Clark? But he asked a lot of him, and Philogene had the answer, fortunately for us. So, again, someone was in need of an opportunity, or sort of the chance to show himself in a game like this, I thought, because obviously he was too recently through the door to get an opportunity against Bristol Rovers, and then he's been restricted to cameos in, say, the Liverpool and City games. So I think it's at the time he's come on, we've been 3 or 4 goals down, which doesn't give him much opportunity as a winger. And then say the less said about that Southampton game, the better, from players all over the pitch. So he's had tough chances really to show us what he can do so far. But again, another one who took his opportunity well, I thought, in the 80 minutes or so he did get. Like I say, you thought the chance had gone when the pass just kept rolling from Clark. But he got on there, he controlled it well, he kept hold of it well, and then he finished it very well. So certainly a lot of positive signs. Like we say, we know the quality he's got from last season and what we expect, and say why we wanted him in the summer and why we've gone back in for him in January. And so potentially, must say, as we look ahead with team selections, despite Clark sort of being the standout of the game, I think Philogene's the one who's probably going to have played his way into the 11 against Villa. Certainly will have a point to prove there as well, having been signed back and kicked out again 6 months later. I can see him lining up from the start of Villa Park after his shift against Coventry.
Whereabouts? Where in the team would you have him?
Off the right, I think, where he's playing today for me. I think mainly because I'd want Broadhead on the left.
No Hutchinson?
Yeah.
No Hutchinson?
Yeah, Hutchinson or Enciso in the middle. And I say purely on the last few weeks, I'd have to put Enciso through the middle at the moment. I said that's what I wanted to see against Southampton. We saw 2 out of 3, and then Amari was the one who didn't hit the same performance level. So it makes sense that he would be the one to drop out of the team if we were going to make changes. But certainly, I think Clark played very well. I don't think enough to force his way in from the start, because Broadhead also ended up getting an hour plus, didn't he, with the added time and everything. So, and he played very well as well. So I'd expect him to keep his place from the start. But certainly there's, some confidence boosts going around. And Philogene, I thought, looked very impressive. And obviously there's only so much you can take in. Like we say, with it being a championship team we're playing against, not a Premier League one. But I'd like to see him. He's impressed me enough to want to see him from the start, Villa Park.
Yeah, I agree. I think I would go with that 3 as well. I think Broadhead should be in the team at the moment. He's consistently been the best player on the left for the last 6 weeks or whatever, even during the tougher times. And Ciso was lively against Southampton, and I think he adds that kind of shoot on sight ability, which is, probably what we need. And I would play Philogene ahead of Hutchinson at the moment. I think it was good that Hutchinson actually was given the whole weekend off. He wasn't on the bench or anything, because I think he just needed, he's clearly been running on maybe low confidence, but he's also been looking a bit jaded towards the end of games as well. And you pointed it out that he was really ineffective against Southampton towards the end, but yet he was the one that was still on the pitch, which didn't really make a lot of sense to the eye. But understandable in the sense of what we think he can do and what he has done at times. But I think it was good he got a rest, so hopefully that will bring him back with a bit of rejuvenation. But I would personally, agree with you. I'd go with Philogene, particularly against his old club. He's going to want to prove something, isn't he? And that was it. I mean, the rest of the game was it sort of filtered out, really. I mean, Coventry were never in the game at 4-1 down, and we managed the game nicely for the last half an hour. Was there anyone else that kind of stood out to you? Any other decent performances?
George Hurst needs a mention, definitely. Obviously, tucked away a very good penalty, like we say. Got the assist for Clark's first goal as well, and another one who has been restricted in how much he can play. Obviously, all his injury troubles, but has put very good shifts in when he has played, especially from the start. And so it's nice to see again someone else who probably needed a goal for confidence, as we say, that he was looking decent and then got injured again, which obviously is going to be a big hit to him mentally to have to come back from that battle through. So I think a goal from him will do him a world of good, and it was another good shift. And he's going to have a role to play, isn't he? Because, I mean, the fact that Delap came on for 10 minutes here at 4-1 up shows how light we are in the striking department. Because obviously,
I couldn't quite believe
obviously
that,
he'd run his race, but then we had to bring Delap on, because what else have we got? It's something we spoke about it a lot over the January window, didn't we? But that's like Hurst has got a big role to play. So obviously keeping fit is going to be the first problem with him, because he's got horrible luck with injuries in the last couple of years. But keeping him fit is problem one. But keeping him firing as well is going to be a tough task if he's getting 10-minute cameo. So when he can get in from the start, he's got to take his chance, and he's certainly done that against Coventry.
Yeah, I've got to be honest. I'm always really reassured by George Hurst, because, I know his injury record is pretty awful, but whenever he comes back, he does hit the ground running quite quickly. He tends to sort of score fairly early back into the team and stuff. And I think, again, maybe with one eye on the Championship, I don't want to be a pessimist, considering I was very much the optimist of our little band. But he will be there, I mean, Delap won't be, will he? Obviously, if we're in the Championship, but George Hurst will. And I think if you can keep him fit, you probably do have maybe a 20-goal a season Championship striker there. And obviously somebody who can mix it in the Premier League a little bit as well, if he can stay fit. And obviously that is the big question mark when it comes to him. But I always like the fact that he comes back and hits the ground running. Schmodix was in the team as well. What did you make to him? Kind of making his way back to full fitness as well.
Yeah, well, it was tough to say, really, isn't it? Because he unfortunately had to limp off again in the first half. But
yeah,
it was nice. It's interesting that he's gone he was in the 10 almost behind Hurst for me, because that's something we spent the first month or so of this season crying out for, and then he sort of made the spot on the left his own with a decent little run of form before getting injured. But I thought it was interesting that it's almost now he's finally nailed down playing well on the left hand side. We've now chucked him in there, but naturally, if Clark and Philogene are playing with him in those three, then he's the best candidate to go centrally. But certainly didn't look as on it as he has been at other games this season, naturally, because it was his first game back, and he's clearly still nursing it if he's ended up going off again after 35 minutes. But
I think it was more, it's not too bad. It might have been more precautionary, though. Yeah, I think it might have been more precautionary. I don't know. We'll see. Hopefully it's not an extended period anyway. But the Delap thing, I agree, was it was funny, wasn't it? And you just kind of think, well, back to January, there was the opportunity, obviously, to restock the strikers there, but they didn't take it. Anyway, we saw the game out 4-1 in the end, nice and comfortable, and we are through to the FA Cup fifth round for the first time. Robin, how many years do you know?
A long time, I imagine, because we struggled to get out the third round for about a 10-year period, didn't we? We barely got a win to our names. It must be
18 years, mate. 18.
18? Oh, God, I didn't think it was that bad.
18.
Well,
yeah, pretty bad, hey?
How long has it been since the course? That's the next thing to start looking at, I suppose.
Yeah, it is. All right, let's take another quick break and then we'll talk about who we might be facing and what else was going on in the FA Cup this weekend.
Every club. Every day.
I'm not sure what was going on there. Sorry.
This podcast is brought to you by the Global Sports Podcast Network. The Global Sports Podcast Network is changing the face of football podcasting with dedicated daily content for every Premier League team, women's football, fantasy football, and a daily Premier League wrap-up broadcasted in 5 different languages. It's your one-stop shop for your daily football fix, and you can find all podcasts on the GSBN network on all your usual streaming platforms. Global Sports Podcast Network. Every club, every day.
Sorry about that, everybody. Welcome back to the Daily Ipswich. My computer was going a little bit wild there. We had a few shocks in the FA Cup this weekend. Well, one very big shock. Plymouth Argyle knocking out Liverpool. At the time of recording, we don't know about Aston Villa and Spurs, but another one of those is going to go. Chelsea lost. They're out to Brighton. Obviously, Arsenal lost in the previous round. Man City snuck through against Leyton Orient. They were given a bit of a scare there. Man United got through against Leicester, so there could be a repeat of the Manchester final at the moment, but let's hope not. We're into the fifth round of the Cup, Rob. If you get a favourable draw here, a quarter-final is very much on the cards.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like you say as well, that whether you look at the teams that have gone out as well, that it's going to go one or two ways this year, really, I think. It's going to be one of those rogue years that gets thrown in every now and again where someone unexpected wins, or City are just going to walk it. There's the two ways it's going to go. I think, and it depends heavily on how their other competitions play out. If they get knocked out of the Champions League by Real Madrid, then I think they're just going to start putting full strength 11s out in the FA Cup until they can get a trophy under the name, because they will certainly not like a trophyless season, and so they're not going to win the league. There's probably a good chance they don't win the Champions League, so the FA Cup stands their best chance. And clearly, from that Leyton Orient game, that they're not in the position anymore where they can just put a B-side out and get over the line comfortably. They're going to have to throw the big names in there, like they needed with De Bruyne, the one being who scored the winner against Orient. That the other way, but you look at some of the teams in there, though, like I say, but it does just stink of a shock year, like a Wigan year. Or the year before they had Swansea winning the League Cup. It does just stink of one like that, because there's some good Premier League teams doing it, but you got the season like Bournemouth are having. If they imagine they win the FA Cup on top of that, or say Newcastle have got one cup final, they'd be desperate they'll probably see this as an opportunity as well. So you've got a lot of teams like Forest are still yet to play as well. But again, what a season Forest are having, that they'd love to tie it together with a trophy, assuming obviously that could sound really badly if by Wednesday night they've lost to Exeter. You don't know, but certainly there's a bigger opportunity, as it has been in recent history, really, I would say. but it all depends on that draw, because it all sounds really positive. But I'm saying all these big teams are going out. There's still every chance we go to the Etihad in the next round. So you do never know. And obviously, you have to get the job done on the day as well. So you can't plan ahead too far.
Yeah. No. You're right. I mean, what we need obviously is Man United and Man City to be drawn together, and then maybe Bournemouth and Newcastle, and then the winner of Villa and Spurs against Forest, maybe if they get through and stuff. But yeah, you're right. There's plenty of Premier League sides still in there. Fulham have got through, Brighton have got through, Wolves have got through. So there's plenty of quality, but you've also got the likes of Cardiff are in there. Preston, Millwall beat Leeds, which is a great result away from home. So yes, there is an opportunity, and I guess I would say if we got a home draw against one of the Premier League sides, you'd fancy it. But our home form's been so appalling that maybe we want to go away. I don't really know, but yeah, you're right. It does have that feel about it. You know, the Leicester season a few years ago when they won it and that kind of thing, or you get the rogue run to the final. Someone like Southampton got to the final years and years ago, stuff like that. But a cup run would be nice. A cup run would be really nice, like a semi-final or something.
Yeah, I mean, a chance to go to Wembley, because say we are one of a list that grows ever smaller every season of clubs that have never played a competitive game at the new Wembley. It seems like every year these random League One and League Two teams, you think surely you'll beat them there. They keep getting in the playoffs and getting a chance to play at Wembley. That we can't end up as the last ones left on that list. So we're overdue a visit to Wembley, certainly.
We are. I agree. All right. Any other thoughts on the weekend, Rob, or the FA Cup in general? It was great to see, obviously, Plymouth. That's obviously the result of the weekend, seeing Liverpool fall out of the competition. Considering Plymouth are having a terrible season, obviously, in the Championship, it's an amazing result for them. Look forward to seeing Pie Face's reaction to it. I'm sure that will be entertaining.
Yeah, I can imagine that will be a lively one, probably, as it will be for anyone in the Plymouth fan base. I reckon it'll be a fairly lively Sunday after that result. But hey, I hope there are going to be a few more upsets in the next round. We're getting to the point now where we're the upset, really, because we've had the pressure of being Bristol Rovers and Coventry, obviously the expectation being there, but the lower league sides are dropping out fairly rapidly. We're getting to the point where the likelihood is we get a draw where technically, even if it is I would say like a Fulham or somebody, we'd be the underdog that you class it as a cup set if we got a result. But if it's anything, say they're the games we tend to do a lot better. So maybe we do need to, if we can't have one of the Championship teams at home that we can hope see us through, then maybe we want one of those sort of underdog games that we can throw together. But so we're going for a cup run. It's that I don't know. I'm so torn because you'd love it to go like it. It sort of has to be. If you want a cup run, you want a proper one. You don't want to prioritise the cup if you're not at the expense of getting relegated. If you aren't going to get you take a Wembley trip, mate, and that would soften the blow of relegation. But would you take quarterfinals and relegated? No, you wouldn't probably. So there's that balance there to be had, which is going to be difficult because you want the excitement, but also you can't help feel like that. If it doesn't end up in a fairy tale cup run, then has it been a waste of time? And I don't know how you throw the resources around. At the moment, we've been able to rotate, but so if we go and we'll see who we get in the draw, and then that might shape my opinion one way or the other as we go into the fifth round. But I don't know. I'm so torn.
Well, what do you think you would do? I mean, I think if you got a Premier League club, you probably would go full strength. To be honest, if you got Man United, they'd play their first team. If you got City or Villa or Spurs, they'd probably play a few sort of reserves potentially. But I think the likes of Fulham and Bournemouth and all that kind of they're going to play their full team. Like as you say, it's an opportunity. So it's interesting, isn't it? You use these players for the first couple of rounds, but then when you get a sniff of a quarterfinal or a semi-final, maybe you might put the big boys out. But Delap played in this game, and it's not as if we have like the luxury of a really strong squad all the way through. So most of these players are going to be coming back for these games.
It depends who we get for me as well, because you look at the run of games. Obviously, we're in the middle of in the Premier League. That this comes in the week between, say, the weekend after going to Old Trafford, and then the following week is we go to Selhurst Park, which are two very big games that are the sort of games, as strange as it is to say, obviously, with the history of Man United, but they're two games you need to be looking at going and get something from. They, on paper anyway, so two middle of the bottom half teams away from home, that's the sort of places you've got to go try and nab a point at least. Ideally all three. And at this stage of the season when you're fighting for points, that it depends who we get. If you then throw in a run-of-the-mill, almost mid-table, like same sort of game in the cup, like a Fulham or somebody, then there may be question marks that should you haven't been to Old Trafford on the Wednesday night or whenever it is, and setting up for Palace, that maybe you sort of have to rotate more than you would if it is a championship team there. But so I need to see the draw before I can fully make my mind up on how hopeful to get and what the potential effects could be on the Premier League survival race. Because I say that game at Selhurst Park is not as big as it would have been a couple of months ago with their recent run of form to pull themselves out of it, but still, it's really a game. They're the sort of games you've got to go and grind difficult results out in March and onwards.
Yeah. And by that point, to be honest, they're going to be probably pretty much safe. So you never know, they might take their eye off it. All right, well, in terms of the draw, we will find out later today. The draw is at 7:00-ish time this evening. So we'll have a response to that for you guys afterwards, which you can hear on the podcast tomorrow. So from myself and Rob, thank you very much for listening to the Daily Ipswich, and we will see you guys later.
Every club,